Hello and welcome to Sincerely Elvis Presley. I'm Sean. Thanks for taking the time to tune in. I appreciate it. This time around, I'd like us to take a look at the evolution of the Elvis book, or more specifically, the evolution of the premium level, if you like, Elvis book. So when you look back at when Elvis was alive, there were very few books available. And in the aftermath of his death, I'd say probably for the next decade or so, although some what you call premium books started to come out, there wasn't a great deal. I would say it's fair to say that the kind of rise of the premium, if you like, coffee table, if you like, call them what you will, Elvis books kind of really starts to take a hold in the 90s and accelerates through and continues unabated to today. So what I'd like to do to kind of illustrate where this type of publication had its roots and where it's kind of ended up is by looking at three titles that pretty much cover exactly, they've got the same remit, they cover the same thing, and that's Elvis's concert years from after he'd done the 68 special through to his final performance. So we go 69 through to 77 in all three books. Now the first two I'm going to look at, I guess you could call them vintage. They are both published in 1997, although the first one we'll look at, its origins were in 1992 when it was published in Norwegian. And the last sort of three book monster set we'll take a look at only came out last year. So you've got basically a 27-year gap between the three books, the first two and the last one. So I just thought, let's take a look at where we've got to in, a couple of decades or so. So let's start with this one. Now this is Elvis, the concert years 1969 to 1977 by Stein Erik Skar. Now this particular title, at one stage it became a little easier to get hold of. You could pick them up. You can still pick them up, but they do seem to be getting harder to get in nice condition. So this one will set you back, I think, today, anything in excess of £150 in nice condition. You do quite often see them go, as our author, Stein Erik Skar. You do see them quite often without the dust jackets, but as you can see, they kind of look quite plain without the dust jacket. Funny enough, the first copy I had of this would be early 2000s, had two dust jackets, so I was spoiled for choice. Not quite sure how that happened. Maybe one of them that I've seen for sale is the one that's missing the one I got two for. Who knows? Right, let's take a look at what this one has to offer then. So as I say, published in 1992 originally in the author's native Norwegian, and then it was translated and published by the Flaming Star publishers under the auspices of Paul Granlund, he of FTD luxury book fame, and it's Flaming Star that today produce and have done for some time publish all of the FTD book titles. So, there's an interesting lineage there. Now, what this book does, it's each year is taken by either a Vegas season or a tour, and the author gives a description of that tour and goes into detail about it. And then at the end of that section, you'll get some contemporary press reports, and it's broken up like that. This, bearing in mind, we're talking 28 years old. This book is still absolutely as good today as it was back then. So there's the 69 season, and there is the press regarding that season. I think Probably where this title falls down a little is, you know, you've just had 1969 and you've got, what we got, 4 press conference on stage, 2 more on stage, and then we move on. There's one final backstage one, and then we move on to the next season in Vegas. So it's not per tour, per season, it's not super photo heavy, but that's not to decry it, because the photographs are well selected, they're very illustrative of that season. So there we go, 1970, January, February 1970, second season in Vegas. Interesting. Oh no, I was about to say, well, that's not a Vegas shot, but it isn't. It's the Houston Astrodome that followed shortly afterwards. So I was about to say, well, it's got the wrong shot. Hasn't got the wrong shot at all. So then we get a bit of press, and then we're into season 3, Las Vegas. And as you can see, season 3, that's the way it is season, we get 3 photographs and a bit of press. So it, you know, I suppose it has got a lot to pack in, but it doesn't concentrate too heavily on each one. But that, okay, it's not a criticism, it's a really nice little encapsulation. So the first actual on the road, tour 2, and you get the idea. So let's just flick through. So it's really nice, you know, it's really concise, it's really tight, and really nicely put together. A really nice example, an early example of how to do a deluxe Elvis book well. Really, really top quality. As I say, the first time I got this was early 2000s, so it'd been out about 5 years ago. So the Great British Elvis Fan Club was still selling. They still had stocks and were selling copies when I got mine. And you know, for what it gave me at the time, just fantastic. I loved this book, and you know, I'm still going to give it a hearty recommendation. If anyone hasn't got it, as I say, you're going to pay a pretty penny for it now. But then it's one of those that's kind of retained and increased in value for good reason, because people know it's a really good title, a really good book. You know, if you want a really well put together summary of, I'm going to start flicking through a bit more now, I'm not going to go through every page, but you know, the concert years, then this does it really, really well. So we go through, each tour's given its, you know, numerical identifier, each season's given its numerical identifier, so you could easily sort of flick through if you wanted to look for a particular Vegas season or tour, Lake Tahoe, and you know, find it quite easily, find some descriptions of what went on during that particular engagement or tour, and then get some press reports from the time. So we'll move on a little bit, get the idea, because I want to show you what happens when we get to the last bit, because there are some sections at the back that are really useful. So let's just jump. Tour 21, 76. Tour 23, 76. And where's the 77? Tour 27. Tour 28. And then the final tour. And then we get to the end, get an epilogue. It finishes with these newspaper accounts of Elvis's passing, and then the final section we first and foremost get a list of all the stage suits worn at all the tours and all the engagements. Now, you know, that's not ideal because it just says what they are, and it'd be great if they were illustrated, but you know, it's of its time. It's not, I can't sort of mark it down a few points because of that. So we get the stage suits. Then for each of the tours and engagements, we get the musicians. And then we get the concert songs listed. Now obviously if you're after a particular concert and what was done, this isn't going to do it for you because it just breaks it down by engagement and season. But it's, you know, it's a nice little addition. And then I think we finish with the actual concerts themselves, and each tour is listed and the venues and dates given for each of them, and actually it does tell you for each of those what suit was worn. So let's have a look. Recently I did the opening of the Vegas season in August 74, and I didn't realise that it was the peacock suit that was worn, but do you know what, this is just the top. I was going to say, oh, we'll just look that up, but I think this is just the tours. It is. So we're not going to see that because it is, unless he breaks it down into the Vegas seasons. Don't think it does. So I was going to verify whether he was right there, and I can't because this is just the tours and not Vegas engagements. But what's it say? I've chosen to use the term tour only for those cases where Elvis appeared in at least 2 cities. This explains why the 6 concerts held in Houston in 1970, the 2 in Hawaii in 73, and the New Year concert in Pontiac on December the 31st, 75 are not listed as tours. Okay, fair enough. So that's your Stein Eric Scar, the concert years, 1969 to 1979. If you see it and it's not a fortune, add it to the collection because it's a fine publication. So, in exactly the same year that got its English translation, Paul Lichter released this EP in concert as a limited numbered collectible in memory of Colonel Thomas A. Parker. So it's strange, you know, even back then, so we go back 28 years, and even then, you know, the Elvis stuff all coming out at once seems to have always been the case because, you know, in terms of English language, we got 2 books covering the sweep of Elvis's concert years. So this one, EP in concert. Now, what we say here, produced with the cooperation of Graceland and Elvis Presley Enterprises. So this one's an interesting one because it went through a period of being hard to get hold of and really expensive, and that's kind of dropped a little. So if you want a copy of this today, you can pick it up for something in the region of £60-65, something like that. Turns up on eBay a lot. It is numbered. I've got number 44 and it's hand numbered. So this takes a slightly different approach to the Stein Eric Scar book. I get some photographs of Parker and I think who's that? That must be Paul Lichter's children or child. He's with so first of all we get a description at the beginning of all the pictures used, which is an odd choice because you usually get that at the back of the book. But so then we get an introduction which is called The Greatest Show on Earth. And after the introduction, which is kind of, I think it's a summary of Elvis in concert through the years, because yeah, it is. It's a narrative of it. So then we get lists of, these are the Vegas engagements, I think. Jumpsuits worn during this, yeah. These are a list of the Vegas engagements, the dates, and the jumpsuits worn for each of the engagements. So, you know, that puts it all together there, but it doesn't tell you specific dates and what jumpsuit was worn. Hint: 73 Hilton Hotel, American Eagle, blue lined cape, blue Tiffany suit, silver lined cape, blue nail suit, etc., etc. So it starts off with the Vegas seasons. Then we get Tahoe and the dates of those seasons. You also get the, and actually the Vegas one also gives you the songs that were sung, and you don't get specific dates on what they, but you know, you get during this engagement, these were the tracks that were performed. Same for there. And then we get the tours annotated, and each tour and each venue is annotated, along with, so Houston Astrodome, 2 p.m, that's the way it is suit. It's a bit generic. There was more than one suit in that's the way it is. Maybe it means the concho. I'm not sure. On stage suit. Okay. So you get each of the tours all the way through to 77. Oh, there we go. So far, I'd say the first book is a little bit more lavishly illustrated. This is, but so far it's a lot of black and white. Now, what's this? In the sold out section, I've given you a year-to-year breakdown for all the songs Elvis sang. The EP in concert section features the same year-to-year breakdown for all concert stops. In this chapter, I'm taking you, the reader, one step further. Wherever possible, you'll find a complete song list for that particular show, Vegas, Tahoe, and on tour. These song listings are definitive and, I believe, 100% accurate. Please note that during Elvis's early Vegas and tour stops, the opening theme music consisted of Love Me Tender or Blue Suede Shoes. Once Elvis discovered Also Sprach Zarathustra, 2001 theme, he used it to open every show for the remainder of his career. Not strictly true, is it? Because we know that in 74, at the opening of the summer season, he started that first show with Big Boss Man, and there was no 2001. So that's not strictly true. Anyone possessing any live cassette tape recordings or positive information of song listings for any live show not found in this book, please contact me. So, you know, you get as far as he was able to make it accurate. Song lists for every single show, which is quite an undertaking, you know, for when this came out at the time, a very ambitious and impressive undertaking, for sure. And as I say, this one, I'm still going to say this comes highly recommended. So what we got there, we break at 73, so I think we've got a souvenir concert tour photo book in the middle. So we've kind of broken that list of the concerts and the songs performed for a colour section. So at least we do get some nice colour photographs, quite nicely put together, this section. As I say, I'm gonna recommend this one as well. If you can get this for £60 to add it to your collection, it is well worth it. I don't think it's quite as good as the Stein-Erik Scar book, but nevertheless, it's a worthy addition. Let's say it's come down quite a lot in price I'm not entirely sure what the reason behind that is. But there was a time when you'd have paid a lot more and it was a lot harder to get hold of. But I see this cropping up with fairly regular frequency. In fact, there's one on eBay at the moment that's about $20 odd, but then you're going to pay about $30–40 if you're in the UK to ship it. So, you're probably better off getting one that's sort of more local for the sort of £60 mark to start with. And I don't think for what you're getting with this, that's too bad at all. And, I know I talked about sort of the luxury premium end of the market of these books, and you kind of look at this and think, well, it's a fairly substantial book, but it looks a bit thin compared to what we get now. But that's just the evolution. This at the time was a high-end premium book for absolute certain. So, I think this is a really nice one. And actually, I'm probably going to take back a little bit what I said about the illustrations, because we get page upon page of these. I think probably what he's tried to do is, as much as possible, show each of the jumpsuits that he can. And then we continue back with the concerts in 73 and the track listings, then the tours. So I think we started with Vegas. And then we're going through all the tours, so we should be in 76. So we should have the final concert, the last farewell at Market Square Arena, Indiana, and the track list that there is for that. So, really nicely done, I think. Oh yeah, and then at the end we get press reports, starting in 1970 and then going through 71. So it's interesting how it kind of takes a similar approach, but it just breaks it up in a different way. So whereas the other book, the press reports, were at the end of each of the relevant sections, these are kind of put at the end, and then they go through. So 72, Madison Square Garden, Aloha from Hawaii TV review, 74, Montgomery, Alabama, Mossborough, Tennessee, 74. So yeah, really, really nice, and well worth adding to the collection. I don't think I'd go over £100 for it, but at the sort of 65, 70 mark, a really nice one to add to the collection. Well worth it. And each, the front and end with a nice sort of matte paper end page. So really nice. So there's 1997, and that's what we had then. And really, what we had then was pretty darn good, and still holds up pretty well today, I think. But then last year, we got this to top it all off. A 3-book set from the Elvis Files team from Eric Lawrenson, and this is Elvis 1124, the concert files. Now 1124 refers to the amount of shows Elvis performed from when he returned to the concert stage in 69 through to his very last concert. I think when this was first announced, it was called 1125 or something like that, and I think it was Keith Flynn that put them right and said you've got the number of concerts wrong. But not as wrong as we know Netflix got last year on the Fall and Rise of Elvis Presley documentary, where at the end it said that, after the 68 special, he performed 361 concerts to the end of his life. Yeah, rather more than that, sort of more like 4 times that, or getting on for 4 times that. Although, having said that, I do believe that Netflix documentary has been corrected since, and it's got a more realistic number at the end. Whether it's an entirely accurate number, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, I'm going to try not to sort of break the back and break the camera and anything. I think this is probably the heaviest box set I've got. you've got this really heavyweight card slip case for all 3 books, which is nicely done. And then you've got your 3 volumes. Now, this isn't without its problems. It's a lovely set, but it's, you know, there are a couple of niggles. I know that that's going to come as a real shock to anyone that's a regular viewer, that I've got a niggle with something. I mean, surely not. Well, first of all, I've got no problem with the Elvis font, but I hate that font. I think it looks really amateur. I just don't like it, but that's a small niggle. So my other niggle, and we'll get there, but when you get the Vegas seasons, at the beginning of a season, they'll show you the menu that was given to diners. So it will show it down the side, and yet you get to 1973 in the summer season and there's not one there. And I just don't understand how they've, you know, if that's what you're doing and you're setting it all out like that, how could you possibly miss one? But anyway, as I say, a couple of small niggles. It's a very, very, very good book set, and I'm not going to take that away from it. So volume 1, 69, 70, 71, 72. So we get 4 years in the first one. We get 3 years in the second one and 2 in the final win, which I'm not sure I'd have done it that way. I think I'd have given a bit more to the earlier years than I would the later years to break it up. But okay, so let's start with 69 to 72, and we start with the mock-up signing of the contract for Vegas. Then we've got Las Vegas season 1, 31st of July 69 to 28th of August. So it does it in the similar way to the Stein Eric Scar. We start with season 1 and it will break it down season per season. So we get suits and jumpsuits used, songs sung for the first time, songs sung only one time, songs sung for the last time, official live vinyl CD Blu-ray, and then do we get anything else? Don't think we do. And then we get the versions of the official release. So that's really nice, you know. But there we go. That's season 1. And that's what I mean. You get a side panel there, starting the season, Las Vegas souvenirs and menus, 1969. So you get to see that before the season, which I thought was a really nice little touch. But was a bit disappointed when we got to get 73. But yeah, I think that's really nice, the way that breaks that down. Telling you the jumpsuits worn, telling you the songs that were performed for the first time. Just really nice. I really like the way that's done. And then we get into the sort of the meat of the season. So we start seeing the photographs from it. Now, what's this description? So, Gordon Minto writes this. So again, you know, great pedigree at the beginning of the book. Elvis Presley, the comeback kid. So you get an article by Gordon. Musicians, warm-up show, backup vocalist, musicians, symphony orchestra, songs performed, also used. Just, if you want detail, and you see what I mean, that, you know, we saw 2 books that would have been premium books when they came out. And now look at this, look at how many, 3 volumes covering the same thing that 1 book was covering. That's the kind of level of detail that we get now. And when you think about it, that's reflective of the whole Elvis release world, isn't it? You know, look at the silver box in 1980, and we got a handful of Elvis outtakes. Now we're getting entire sessions released on box sets. So kind of everything's, you know, it's easy to whinge, but we really are spoiled. What we get for our man Elvis is quite incredible. The amount that we're treated to is absolutely mind-blowing. There is no other artist that has ever existed or will ever exist that you know warrants this kind of detail. It is simply staggering. And you know, this book, there we go, Las Vegas souvenirs and menus, and you get the menu there at the beginning, which I think is a really nice touch. If only they'd have continued it for the entire book. But yeah, just the layout, just there's Houston Astrodome, fantastic. You know, any little gripes and niggles aside, this, if you can, it's not cheap. If I remember rightly, I think it was, I want to say £200, something like that. Not cheap at all. But for 3 massive heavyweight books with this kind of detail, with this kind of presentation, I don't think that's a ridiculous sum at all. Yeah, I'm sure it was about 200. I'm not sure if there's any left. I'm pretty sure quite a few Elvis dealers have copies of this yet left. So if you can save up, or if your budget runs to it, and it's something you've kind of sat on the fence maybe a little bit about, I'd say, you know, you're not going to be disappointed, because you know this is those other books to the power of 10, isn't it? Just, yeah, I think it really, you know, that's exactly when I'd originally thought of just doing the Steiner, Scar and Lichter books together and looking at 2 books of the time, you know, and compare how they did things. But then I just thought, well, if anything illustrates just where things have gone, you know, this does, for the fact it covers exactly the same, it's got exactly the same remit. So being an Elvis Files publication, what we're seeing on your text are loads and loads of contemporary press reports and reviews and what have you. But yeah, so that's 69 to 72. Absolutely glorious. Now 73, 74 and 75. Just you know, this is one of the finest things they've put out, for absolute sure. So do we get, so let's go Vegas for the opening season. So there we go, Las Vegas souvenirs and menus 1973. So that's the first season, Jan Feb, and there's your menu. And your photographs from the season, photographs from subsequent tours. Just awesome. But just to illustrate the point, we'll go to August when the summer season, just want to get there, show you some of the great photos. We'll go to August when the summer season starts in Vegas. So go, Las Vegas season 9, August the 6th, 1973 it starts. But before that, that's in Atlanta, and then we go straight into that season and we don't get the Vegas menu. So why? Because there definitely was a summer Vegas menu, because that's it there. So I just think, I don't know if it's because of the sort of breadth and detail and the huge scope that maybe there's so much involved tying all this together to put something so all-encompassing together that it makes it easier for something to get missed. But surely that's the point where a proofreader worth their salt that really knew their subject to go, hold on a minute, you've got them, because I don't know if we get them, do we get them 74? 74 March, so we really need January 74 to see if we get one. We get one for Vegas, season 10. See, no, we don't get one for 74 either. It's almost like they dropped the idea. I'm sure we do get some later on, but yeah, that's a bit disappointing. But you know, it is that good that it feels like a bit of a churlish niggle just to focus on that. But yeah, it would have been nice to have a bit of consistency there, because I thought it was a really nice touch. But just fantastic the way things have moved on and progressed in 3 decades. Just that's a terrible shot. I know how it's caught him, but I wouldn't have used that. But yeah, fantastic. So there is to 75, and then we get more of the same. But as I say, each of these books is the same size. Now I know on the concert tours Elvis was performing more and more dates as time went on, but you know, to have crammed the first 4 years into one volume, all right, 69, there was only one season in Vegas and that was it. So you know, you could technically say, I guess that's more the equivalent of 3 years. But anyway, and then to have 2 at the end isn't how I'd have done it. I'd have spaced it out a little bit differently. But nevertheless, fantastic. You know, the level of detail, the information, you can just pick yourself up and pick one of these up and lose yourself in the detail and the layout. They're fantastic. I highly recommend this set, and I highly recommend all 3 of the volumes, if you like, that I've shown, you know, the titles that I've shown today, because in their own way each of them tackle a similar sort of remit, a similar topic, similar time scale. They all do it in a slightly different way, but they all do it really well. You know, any of these books added to your collection, if you don't have them, is a well worthy addition. So yeah, there we go. There's a quick look through Elvis 1124. So let me know in the comments what you think. First of all, what do you think of the evolution of Elvis books over time? Do you think they've gone too far because they're too expensive and out of a lot of people's reach now because of the cost of them? Do you love that kind of detail and almost want to see more? Do you have a soft spot for the books back then that were, you know, let's say they, you know, you could pick them up, flick through them. You didn't need a sort of block and tackle to get them out and try and maneuver yourselves around them just to hold them up, because, you know, that is one disadvantage of these whopping great volumes that we get today, isn't it? They're, you know, they're not just pick up and have a flick through. They're a bit of a commitment just to get them off the shelf. But you know, have you got any of these titles? Have you got all these titles? Have you got none of these titles? Is there any you'd like? Whatever, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know. But hopefully, you know, you enjoyed that. I thought it was well worth having a little look of where things have gone. I can't really see they're going to evolve much further than they have. You know, taking something, a topic like that, and making a massive 3-volume set. I can't see, you know, where else they'd go further than that. But who knows? You know, you could expand further than that, I suppose, and have a volume per year, per engagement. You could have some massive, huge volume. You know, we've seen CDs do, you know, tour 1, tour 2. So could you do it that way? You know, is there even room to go even further? Maybe. Let me know in the comments what you think. As ever, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it immensely. Hope you're able to join me next Sunday. I don't think I've worked out quite what I'm going to do yet, so that'll be a surprise to me as well as you. But whatever you do, have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Ta-da.
We'll meet you again. May God bless you. Adios.